Hello everyone, you're watching Global Leaders Network, WINTV. I'm your host, Yesa Yun. There are many leaders globally in areas such as government, non-for-profit organization, business, art industry, education, etc. Global Leaders Network invites these leaders and share their wonderful stories. Today, I invited someone from non-profit organization, the Heartland Institute. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Good. Would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Lindsey Stroud. I'm a state government relations manager with the Heartland Institute. I've been there since 2016, and one of the issue areas I cover is tobacco harm reduction. In my job, I do a lot. I communicate with all the state lawmakers, as well as doing all the research on electronic cigarettes, vaping devices, and a little bit of alcohol tax policy work as well. So I get to do a lot of fun things.
I see. How dangerous is tobacco?
Like combustible tobacco, it depends on how you consume it. So tobacco use is thousands of years. It's actually, smoking's relatively new, like in a cigarette form, but tobacco bits were very popular in the late 1800s, especially among like the South in America. Combustible cigarettes are the worst way that you can consume tobacco. In 1976, this idea of tobacco harm reduction started. Well, let's back up a second. In 1964, we had our landmark Surgeon General warning on cigarettes that found that it linked combustible cigarettes to cancer, and it was actually based off a 1962 report from the Royal College of Physicians out in the UK. And so in that, we started regulating the cigarette in the United States. They were banned from television advertisements, and I think they went off the radio themselves as far as these advertisements. In 1976, a professor, Dr. Michael Russell, had declared that people smoke because of the nicotine, but they die from the tar. And that's with with combustible cigarettes, they heat the tobacco up in such high amounts, and it causes this combustion, and that's where you find all of the, I guess, unhealthy side effect, or, what's causing the harm for, cigarette use. So there's about 699 ingredients in a combustible cigarette. When they're burned, it produces over 7,000 chemicals like ammonia, formaldehyde, and those are what's causing the harm. So in the past 20 years or so, you really have had this idea of tobacco harm reduction. How can we deliver nicotine to people in an effective way that also reduces their harm that they're getting exposed to with combustible use? Smokeless tobacco was one of the first ones to kind of like start doing that in the 1980s, and then in 2000s, and then you started getting nicotine replacement therapy, like the Nicorette, gums, lozenges from the pharmaceutical companies. But in 2007, the electronic cigarette was introduced to the market, and it's really taken off as a very successful tobacco harm reduction tool. So, but it effectively delivers nicotine without, like, in a way that's 95% safer, according to the Public Health England.
I see. I'm pretty sure that you meet a lot of lawmakers, because that's your job, right? Government, government relations director.
Yeah, well, the manager. I have a boss, it's the director, but
managers.
Yeah.
So my question is, what's your institute mission statement? Yes.
We promote free market policy solutions. So to areas related to budget and tax, education, energy and environment, and healthcare. We do a little bit of constitutional reform. And with that, we've got a GR team that we exclusively track all 50 state legislatures. We do a little bit of federal, but our focus is mostly on the state lawmakers. And then we've got about 500 different policy experts in those very issue areas. So we work with the lawmakers as being a research tool, whether it's giving them bullet points, we're hosting a podcast with them, right? Helping them write an op-ed and getting it published somewhere. We've hosted events for them as well, and then provide testimony and experts to come testify on their legislation.
I see. Do others have any real-life threatening or death causes due to smoking?
Oh yeah, at least 1,300 people die in the United States every day due to the health effects of combustible cigarettes. In the next 100 years, 1 billion people will die due to using cigarettes. In fact, and the problem with cigarettes too is they do not start till 40 years later that you're going to start seeing the effects of that, in COPD.
I see. What is an e-cigarette? And I heard a lot of news about e-cigarette,
Well, it's a relatively simple device. It's, I mean, the basic has a battery and then a tank to put the liquid in, and the liquid's getting a lot of stuff, but even, okay, so as we mentioned earlier, cigarettes contain 699 ingredients. E-cigarettes generally contain 5. Nicotine, propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, flavoring, and water. The nic salts, some do include benzoic acid. Now, all of these are pretty much available in a combustible cigarette as it is as well. But they're pretty. They just heat this liquid up, and there's no. We'll talk about that later. But they heat the liquid up. And instead of producing smoke, it produces a vapor. And so they've been studied, like they've been out, they got introduced in the US market in 2007. FDA really wanted to regulate them as a medical device, so there was a lawsuit in place in 2012. The courts ruled that the FDA could regulate them, but they had to regulate them as a tobacco product. And so about 4 years, the FDA didn't do a lot. Well, in 2016, they issued their deeming regulations. So after August, you had any product that was on the market had to be on the market by August 8th, 2016. If not, it needed to go through the pre-market tobacco application, or a PMTA, in order for it to be marketed. Also, every single product had to be registered with the FDA by December 31st of that year. I think it was last year they had to give ingredients listings. I think that was 2017. 2018, they had to start with their listing harmful and potentially harmful constituents. And there's all these steps because eventually every single electronic cigarette product will have to go through the PMTA process. So when they sit here and say they're not regulated, it's not really true. They're not as regulated as people would like them, I think. But they are, anything that's supposed to be legal on the market, there are some, things in place. And I think it's really important now with all the hospitalizations and everything that we're seeing on the news right now to just emphasize that there is some regulations. Juul has been on the market since 2015, for example. They can't pinpoint that Juul is causing any of these hospitalizations, but if they've been out for that long and hospitalizations are only happening now, what changed? And it's not anything they did. It's people can alter them. So,
how many people die so far due to e-cigarettes?
Well, no, they haven't said, they said e-cigarettes. So there's been, I think that it was 13 so far. New Jersey just reported it. It's in now, I think, 11 different states. So California, Kansas, Oregon, Minnesota, Illinois, Indiana, and I'm sure Florida, I think, had one, and Mississippi had one. And I forget the ones at the top of my head, but there's been a run. But they've had, so the CDC, well, the state health department started pushing this out about a month ago, and they were noticing an increase in pulmonary diseases in people who had recently reported vaping. And I think the Wisconsin Department of Health Services was the first one to announce when they started looking into the type of devices these people were using. It's overwhelmingly coming back as the use of cannabis, THC-containing products. And Wisconsin Department of Health had declared like 89% of their cases, it was the use of a THC device. Well, Wisconsin doesn't have medical marijuana, let alone recreational, so it's completely illicit, black market product.
I see. You already answered some of it, but...
yeah, sorry, I know about that.
I heard that the cigarette is more dangerous than, marijuana. Yeah. But what's your opinion? And also some people argue that there's not enough study on recreational marijuana, so we can't make any conclusion on this, Yeah. So what's your true opinion?
Well, if you look at the tar content of marijuana versus a combustible cigarette, there is greater tar in that, but people don't normally smoke marijuana like they smoke cigarettes, all throughout the day. So the level of how much you're getting that tar kind of just depends on how much you smoke as far as the health effects of it. There's numerous effects. For a medical purpose, marijuana has been great in treating some things. Pain patients, for example, instead of using, opioids that can lead to a really issue with dependence on, narcotics. I know for epilepsy, there are some really good effects of marijuana. I'm a libertarian, so I'm okay with marijuana legalization for recreational use. But from a policy point, it does come with a lot of issues. There is increased crime, there are increased, motor accidents. Colorado has had that, So it's being able to segue that into it when you do legalize it, into that there is, there should always be an enforcement program. What you're seeing right now, California has recreational marijuana. They also have a illegal marijuana market that's 4 times the size of their legal one. Oregon's having the same issue as well with this illicit market. So it's interesting, and we're based in Illinois. They just legalized it. The first state to legalize it through the legislature, by the way. Most states have done it through a ballot initiative, or all of them have done it through a ballot initiative. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're able to handle it, because it is coming with regulations. Most of it, when you do a ballot initiative, they do not bring in the mechanisms. That's why I don't think Maine did a ballot initiative in like 2016. I don't even think they have stores yet for recreational, because the legislature has to decide how to regulate it. So as long as it could be good. There's a lot of money in it too. For a cash-strapped state, I can see why that would be. I mean, Colorado is what kind of can attest to it, that it's been very good for them as far as bringing in money. So it's good. I think Illinois is going to be an interesting one to watch, to see how the regulation goes, and can it be good? Can you lower crime rates that are related to this? Not have bad accidents, because people are driving, under the influence of marijuana. So, yeah, sorry if I gave you an earful.
Yeah, but some people think that marijuana, the revenue that we can get from marijuana is not really, if you think about the long term, it's not going to be enough for us to have a law enforcement in the future. Yeah. What do you think?
I think it's a very valid argument. I think that there's going to be. I think they're going to tax it too much, especially in Illinois, and that's what you see in California, that it's just, there is that black market out there to have a cheaper product out there, and I think that will always prevail. So it is kind of a burden for law enforcement to have to deal with another, when they're pulling somebody over, especially, there is no test that they can really run on somebody under the influence of marijuana.
I see. What was your dream when you were young?
What did I want to do? I wanted to write books. Fiction, so it could still happen right now, but yeah, I really wanted to write books and some nonfiction, but mostly like biographies of things. But yeah, just be a writer, a journalist originally, until I realized that I wouldn't be getting paid. But I work at a nonprofit, so it's not. You don't definitely do any of this, to get paid well, but it's definitely rewarding. So, and technically, I have written a book.
Yeah. Can you show us?
Yeah. So this is a Tobacco Harm Reduction 101. This literally came out of all of my interactions with state lawmakers. So with the vaping thing's kind of gone crazy over the past year after the CDC declared a youth vaping epidemic. So I got to meet with a lot of lawmakers over this year in several states, Idaho, North Dakota, just thinking of them. So I really wanted to give, lawmakers just really do not know about it. And if you're not a smoker, you should not be using an electronic cigarette or a vaping device. So I wanted to kind of explain it to you. So it's kind of like a primer on just like what is an e-cigarette, what is the idea of tobacco harm reduction.
Before we close this show, I want to ask you one more question. Okay. What brings you happiness?
Golf. I don't get to play enough of it, but yeah, golf. Interactions with my vaping. I call them my vaping homies. When they just. When I get to send out boxes of that, because they're going to go give them to lawmakers and everything, that always brings me, like, it's just, it makes me, this is why I do what I do. It's nice to have that interaction with people that, like, just truly appreciate, the long hours that you put in, not going to bed till 1 o'clock because you're up reading the news or reading through, I was reading through tobacco bonds from like 2006 in Michigan. That was fun, house journals from yesteryear. So, but once I get their reaction, and it makes it all worth it.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming to us, sharing your organization story and everything.
No, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for watching Global Leaders Network, WINTV. If you want to watch this again, you can watch this through our website and YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe us. And next week, Thursday, 9 p.m., I want to see all of you. And have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.